Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we reveal a prototype version of this podcast that's more like a fidget spinner. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, and then on Thursday, we're celebrating 8 years of this show with the most important moments in gaming during our run of the show. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. It feels good to be back on a news episode. But Patrick, how are you doing?
Okay, all right. So look, I don't know how listeners of the show will know that maybe a month or two ago, I was sick for kind of a while. It did not interrupt our release schedule because I'm that much of a professional. Maybe we did skip one episode.
We
I don't remember.
skip an episode.
We skipped one. Okay, great. So I'm not that much of a professional. But on Sunday, Mark, I tested positive for COVID for the first time.
And I was positive when you were sick last time that it was COVID, just that you never tested positive. But now, I don't think that's true. I think you just had some other mystery illness.
Yeah, I think so too. So anyway, I've got COVID now, which is why we're recording remotely. But I'm actually feeling pretty good today. So you know, it's the story with COVID, right? Unless something really bad happens, which I suppose does happen and did happen. So I'll retract it. I'm feeling much better today.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
If you would like to support us in feeling better today and feeling better every day, you can head on over to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where if you are supporting us at the 8-bit or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries as we put them out. We are currently making our way through NCS Arcade Season 2.
That's right. And, you know, we've threatened to do this Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow episode.
It's going to happen.
Any second now. And we were all geared up to do it this weekend.
Right.
But obviously that didn't happen. But we have plans. It is going to happen. And that'll be for September. And then we'll have another one at the end of October. So help us, God.
It will. Both of these will happen. And Mark, I've played as much of Dawn of Sorrow as I'm going to at this point. So I'm ready to record.
I'm ready to talk about it too.
I guess we'll save any conversation about Dawn of Sorrow for the episode that is a conversation about Dawn of Sorrow. But if you, listener, would like to contribute to our listener feedback episode that we will record afterward, you can email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. with any of your questions or observations about Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow or any of the Castlevania games that are in that sort of mold, right, that Metroidvania style. And then that episode will come out as an episode for free to everyone who follows us on Patreon. So just to repeat, you do not have to contribute to the Patreon at all in order to send us an email about Dawn of Sorrow or to listen to the listener feedback episode. That's all for free for anyone. And then we have a Discord. You should get in there if you're not there already. Nintendo Cartridge Society @gmail.com, and I will send you an invitation. The only other thing, Mark, of course, is that my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book is in comic book stores right now. Issues 1 through 4. Mark, they're all there. All the issues are out there now.
That's amazing. Are you ready to talk about it being collected soon?
Sure. I don't know when exactly that's going to be, but very excited for that thing to be collected because we added a lot to the collection. So there's just a lot there. So very exciting.
I just have one thing to add. So at gmail.com. I don't know if you want to splice that in to when you're doing the email Discord.
No,
or the
I really don't.
Email but just notably, I did do it just a little late. It's there.
I see. Okay, no, I think that counts. And I think I declared like early on during like the early days of the pandemic that while I would edit other stuff to like line up our vocal tracks, I would never nudge those.
That's right. That's right.
They line up as well as they line up, and that's all there is to it.
This one is just exceptionally late.
Yeah, and that's fine. It'll be like our Castlevania 2 Dawn of Sorrow episode for NCS Arcade. Just very late. All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. Obviously, we have both, or I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you hadn't been playing it the last time we spoke, but The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom.
Yes, so I finished Dawn of Sorrow and moved on to Echoes of Wisdom, and I'm a little bit behind where, like I see people talking in the Discord, and I'm definitely not there yet. I'm just a couple of hours in, and I've got to say that I had a similar experience with Tears of the Kingdom, where the initial tutorial sections of Tears of the Kingdom, I was not sure how I was feeling about it. And then, the world opened up, and I ended up loving the game. And I'm enjoying Echoes of Wisdom, but I don't think it's fully clicked for me yet. But I just finished the first rift, and so
okay. So you're still quite early. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's still a lot for me to discover. But yeah, it's just taken me a little bit to get into. Really, it's the combat pieces of it, and deploying echoes against enemies. But I don't know, how are you enjoying it? You must be a lot further ahead than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit further ahead. I mean, I am further ahead than that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you just have to think of all the combat encounters differently, right? Link has such a one-to-one solution for every combat scenario that you could find yourself in. And with Zelda, as she has no direct means of attack unless you use the sword fighter thing, you really have to I don't know, everything feels very intentional. And so I don't know, I like it. But I wouldn't say that the combat is the highlight for me. I think the two highlights for me so far are, I think the dungeons are designed very well. And I have a lot of fun navigating those puzzles. But then beyond that, I think just the just exploring the open world is very fun, because it feels like it is you have so many different tools, and you can use so many of them in different configurations to solve just about any puzzle, and which kind of makes them not puzzles but just problems in the world to solve. And I don't know, there's something very appealing about that to me. And I like just picking through a different set of tricks to get up high somewhere, or get to the top of a pillar, or and whatever kind of thing that you need to solve.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to getting more to that open world and just being able to explore, because I am just at this point, I think I'm missing some of that, which makes sense. I just did the tutorial, and the game would open up more out of that. How are you feeling about the music in the game? Because before the game was released, we had discussed, will it kind of continue the soundscape of the Link's Awakening remake, which was very specific. Right. And I feel like, at least so far, the music hasn't really stood out to me one way or the other. Zelda definitely has her own kind of overworld adventure theme that's different from what what you hear in A Link to the Past or Link's Awakening, and I feel like it is playing with that same sort of sound design as Link's Awakening, but it's also unique. It just hasn't stuck for me in the same sort of way, but I'm interested how you feel.
Yeah, so I mean, you're definitely right that it's playing around with a lot of the same textures that Link's Awakening did, with these sort of smaller ensembles of instruments, so that it's really clear what each voice, what melody each voice is playing. which I do like a lot. It is Link's Awakening, even in the original, has a very specific like melodic or harmonic sort of identity that makes it feel like an island kind of game. And that's not present in this game because it's not on an island. But it is kind of just like riffs on those Zelda themes. One thing that I really like about what they're doing with music, Mark, you mentioned like the Zelda overworld instead of like a Link overworld theme. But there are times in the game where you have to fight like a dark version of Link. And the way it takes the normal like Legend of Zelda like heroic theme and kind of inverts it is very cool. Like it just little hints of like the main theme, and then instead of like going up to like the high part of the melody and like making it sound heroic, it like kind of subverts it and makes it sound like dark and moody and stuff. So I like the music. I guess you're right in that there's nothing that's really stood out to me so far as like I something that I love. But I maybe just haven't paid as strong attention to it yet. I find that I like playing this game in handheld mode a lot. And I know you've almost totally shifted to playing games in handheld. But I don't know about you. When I play in handheld, I'm usually either I have volume like down or off.
Oh, I think because I've shifted to playing in handheld all the time, I am listening to the music and everything. It does feel right at home on a handheld. I played it for a little bit docked, and the game looks really good. Like I think that the art style and everything really shines. I am surprised, I guess a little bit. Like I'm not really one for complaining about frame rates or that sort of thing, but I am surprised that both like this and Link's Awakening that Nintendo lets
that
it.
They have those. Yeah,
It's just kind of like Nintendo lets it go out the door with those rougher edges. Although I suppose even something like Breath of the Wild, you went to the Korok Forest and the frame rate would start chugging there. So, yeah, maybe we're just more picky when we know that it's like Grezzo that was in charge of it instead of Nintendo.
Yeah, but it's also something where it's like, how on earth could this be more taxing than than what Breath of the Wild is doing?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's all strange stuff. And yeah, I think it bothers me less. Either it bothers me less in handheld mode, or I don't experience it as much in handheld. Because I think it does. Using the fact that when it's docked, it's drawing power not from its battery, but from the wall, right? That it is able to like upscale the resolution a little bit, so it is outputting at a higher resolution when it's on the TV screen, which would make sense that it would chug a little bit more there. But yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it really is just like why is this like the standard Nintendo is allowed? Because we also saw this on like Princess Peach Showtime. Like it was or in my experience was a framey mess as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they just for when it's like third parties developing it, they have different standards.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I'm excited to dive into it more. Like I said, I've only put a couple of hours into it, but yeah.
I just wanted to touch on that as long as we're talking about playing games in handheld mode, specifically that most of I started playing Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow on the TV mode. And then as soon as I realized that it would want me to touch the screen at all, I was like, I need to do this in handheld mode. There are like ways to get around it with this like awful cursor thing. Or like where you can push buttons to simulate drawing on the screen. But I was like, no, absolutely not. We can't do this. I've got to play in handheld mode.
Yeah, I played it exclusively in handheld mode, and I would occasionally accidentally trigger the on-screen the cursor because it's like ZR. If you click ZR, it puts a little pointer on the screen that you can then use to draw or like remove ice blocks or whatever you got to do with it. And that seems like it would be horrible.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're just like, yep, here's how you do this, instead of being like, we recommend you play this in handheld mode. And I wish they would just do that. Would just be like, this game was designed to be played with a touchscreen. So.
Well, I guess like if you're on if you're playing it on PS4, like Xbox or
that's a good point.
whatever other systems that it was released on, you may not have that option. So they had to do something.
Oh God. So so then there's just no way around it on those. There's a mechanic, and I know we'll talk about it more when we actually record the episode about Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, but there's a mechanic in there where you have to draw these like sigils on the screen.
Right.
And I have no idea how you would do some of the more complicated sigils without just actually drawing it on the screen.
Well, yes. I mean, I agree with that. At least there, I don't think there's a time limit. So you would have like.
Oh, is there not a time limit?
I mean, maybe. I don't know what happens if you fail, if you draw the wrong one.
Oh, I can tell you, you rewind and then try it again.
Oh, right. Problem solved.
That's what I did. And then just wanted to mention that a friend of the show, Jeremy Schmidt, had a party on Friday night wherein he was hosting H-Player Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. I brought my 2 Famicom controllers and 2 NES controllers over. He had the same, and we had 8 people playing that game at once.
Incredible.
It was a lot of fun. And like some people who had been playing it, sort of like ongoing and were like really good at it and, like knew the challenges. Some people that like had never seen Balloon Fight before, and like that is absolutely so the way it serves up the multiplayer like competitive experiences, the like local co-op or competitive games, is that it serves up these like little sets of like 5 or 6 games to just like play one after another, and you get like awarded points. And I wish there was a way to do that in single player.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
So it feels like that's the way to play the game. So get 7 people together and a bunch more controllers.
Perfect.
All right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
I would say a lighter week for new releases. Today, October 8th,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 1 through 6 Collection Anniversary Edition is released, which, as far as I can tell, this is just the pixel remasters packaged and released physically for the first time.
Yes, so they were released as as part of physically as part of like that it was like a big anniversary collection edition or something like that. Remember, it was like this big box that had like little like vinyl pixel guys of all of the characters. And
was it like the special edition that released at the same time, and
it
like sold out on the Square Enix website like really quickly or something like that?
Yes, and was one of these things where it was like $200 or $300, and I was like, can I justify this? And ultimately said no. But so yeah, they're now just releasing the physical disc with all 6 on it.
And I think it comes with a sticker sheet as well.
Sticker sheet?
I didn't look it up, but what is the anniversary that it's celebrating? The anniversary of the pixel remasters? Because that's had to have been 2 years ago, right?
Well, not on Switch though, right? Like those just came out maybe like a year ago. And they didn't. The Pixel remasters didn't all come out at the same time. Like they sort of staggered them out. I wonder. So okay, did the original Final Fantasy come out in '84? Is that right? That seems way too early. Maybe it's '89, and therefore, was like the 35th anniversary.
Okay, here we go. List of Final Fantasy video games.
There we go.
1990? No. 87 on the Famicom.
Okay, well then I don't know because that I don't know what that means.
Yeah, maybe it's a Pixel remaster anniversary. And it's releasing I think this is releasing not just on Switch. So maybe it is the 2-year anniversary of the Pixel remasters releasing it all. Who knows?
But when they came to Switch, that's also when they were coming to like consoles in general, right?
Yes,
because they started on like Steam, I believe. But I mean, whatever. Yes, and this anniversary collection is also coming to PlayStation 4.
Yeah. Maybe it's the anniversary It's celebrating the 8th anniversary of this show.
Maybe that's Mark. That's
That's probably what it is.
You're so smart.
And then on Thursday, October 10th, that Power Wash Simulator Shrek DLC that we saw at the end of August in the partner showcase is being released on Switch.
Hey man, Shrek's back in Power Wash Simulator form. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, what more is there to say?
Yeah. Do you think it's just so funny that like, do you think you as Power Wash Simulator you go out into like developing Shrek DLC because you're like, this will be a fun like meme thing, or are people really like into Shrek?
Oh, that's a really good question. How did this happen? Because there's not like there's a new Shrek thing coming out. So did Power Wash Simulator reach out to DreamWorks, and like did somebody at the developers of Power Wash Simulator like have the idea to they were trying to, maybe they were brainstorming places where it'd be fun to power wash
to bring Shrek, right?
And they were like but Shrek's swamp would be filthy. That'd be a good place, and that got the ball rolling. Or was it the reverse, and somebody at DreamWorks Animation like reached out to the Power Wash Simulator folks?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there has to be like someone whose job it is just to be like, where should Shrek go next, right?
Yeah.
And the answer has yet to be like a movie or a TV show. Why haven't they made a Shrek series yet?
Probably the voice talent's too expensive.
That's a great point. Voice talent is way too expensive.
But they did make I think they made like a Puss in Boots series on Netflix.
Sure. I mean, Banderas will show up for anything, right?
Well, I mean, he's salt of the earth. He's one of us. He's just working.
Is one of us.
Yeah.
He's just working. And then on Friday, I believe it's Friday, maybe it's Thursday, sometime later this week, the F-Zero games come out.
Are they not
on Game Boy Advance?
Are they not already out? Oh, I missed that.
They are not. No.
And then Europa comes out on Friday, October 11th, which is the kind of like 3D platformer that looks incredibly pleasant, that there was a demo for a little while back, maybe out of like the partner showcase earlier this year. And
I played this demo.
And I know that this game has been a labor of love for the developers, which I'm sure all games are for
no, this is the only one.
But anyways, Europa's out. Yeah, let's find out when these F-Zero games are releasing.
It is either the 10th or the 11th. I know that much for sure. Obviously, we did a whole episode last week trying to guess what F-Zero's characters' deals were by their names alone, in preparation for the release of these games on
Friday, October 11th.
There we go. Friday, October 11th is also our 8-year anniversary as a show. So just putting that out there.
It's all F-Zero related. It's all everything's orbiting around F-Zero
somehow. All right, Mark, let's get out of the new releases. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece.
Impressive. With those COVID lungs, that was impressive.
Oh, gosh. Mark, what are we talking about today?
Well, this latest heat wave in LA is supposed to be officially over, which means it might still be 89 degrees, but it's time for us to start thinking about fall fashion. And so this week,
and this is we don't do a weather report on the show.
No,
That's
not anymore.
What this is.
No. So this week for 433, we are pitting flannels versus hoodies versus pullover sweaters versus scarves versus beanies in the ultimate cage match for fall accessory supremacy.
Okay, so first thing I gotta ask is, why do gloves or mittens not make the cut here? Is it because they're too cold weather? Like, if we cross into winter accessory at that point?
And look, I'm a thin-blooded Los Angeles person, so like gloves, they don't even like factor into the equation.
Right.
So yeah, I consider that more like winter wear. But
Sure.
I'd be willing to hear it out if you think if gloves could match the likes of scarves or beanies.
Well, I guess that is also the other relevant point, is that, like, I don't think in any way they match them. I think you can have mittens. There's maybe a conversation, but like gloves, no way. No one has a cute pair of gloves.
Well, I would say the opposite. Like, I feel like you could have for fall. Do you know what? Now we're just talking about our gloves and mittens fall accessories. That's what this has become. That's what this has become. That's what 433 is now. And here's what I would say is that I think the gloves, to my mind, are more fall, because you could have like a pair of, like driving gloves that they're not necessarily thick, but they're not like ski gloves, but they're something.
But you're saying like an athletic glove of some kind,
right? Like, it's a little nippy. It's a fall morning. You want something for your hands
when you're going for a run. That's not what a driving glove is for.
You're going for a morning drive,
right?
And you have your driving gloves.
You're worried that your hands are going to be too cold, so you put on driving gloves. What I like in a driving glove is that fingerless, and it's got like the holes like on like the back, and the whole thing is like made of leather. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. But mittens, no. Mittens, I mean, you're from Wisconsin, so maybe growing up, mittens are a fall thing for you, but to me it's like snow or no mittens.
That's too cold weather.
Yeah.
See, what's interesting is, like, if I'm going to be like outside and interacting with snow, like as a child in Wisconsin, I need gloves and not mittens, because I need the manual dexterity to like pick up snow and like make a snowball, and I can't do that in a pair of mittens.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm on the same page with you, we are saying mittens are what?
Mittens are cute, right?
But
I feel like,
but they don't have individual fingers. That's what we're saying the difference between mittens and gloves are.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to propose a different designation?
No, I just want to make sure we are on the same. I just want to make sure we are on the same page.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did have a friend in college who knitted me a pair of Ninja Turtle like gloves / mittens that have just like the 3 fingers that the turtles have, and I could never decide whether I wanted to treat them as gloves or mittens.
Mm.
And I did have them in Wisconsin, but not as a child. So,
do you still have those?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's fun.
Have I worn them in Los Angeles? I'm trying to think of if I've ever worn gloves or mittens of any kind in LA.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it just never gets that cold.
No. I mean, of course, other than when I'm going for my morning drive and my hands, my fingers might get a little bit nippy, and I need to have full grip on the steering wheel.
You need it for something. I think so. I mean, it is also possible that, like, when I picture driving gloves, I'm also picturing like a hat and goggles and like a big scarf that like someone is wearing for, like, driving around in a convertible,
because there's no roof.
Right?
Yes, it's one of those like old-timey cars that don't have roofs because they hadn't been invented yet. I'm
picturing Mr. Burns is what I'm picturing. Driving around in an old-timey car. All right. We were accompanied today by an alarm on my phone, and we didn't talk about flannels, hoodies, sweaters, scarves, or beanies.
And I don't feel like we got to the bottom of whether gloves and mittens are fall wear or winter wear either. I think
no, I don't think we
this
did.
433
just an absolute fiasco.
Yeah.
I do love a flannel, though. Okay, Mark, let's get into the news.
Monolith Soft, the developer of the Xenoblade Chronicles series, recently celebrated its 25th anniversary, and in a recent interview with Japanese magazine CG World, we learned that the company has set up a dedicated research and development team for the first time. A lot of this article, a lot of the interview was basically talking about how Monolith Soft for so long has been such a small company that they haven't had a lot of time to focus on innovation. They were talking about like when they were working on Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they just had very few in-house developers, but they've reached the point, and like game development has reached the point where they needed to scale up and have a dedicated research and development team specifically to work and continue to expand the company's own in-house game engine, which they've had since Xenoblade Chronicles, the first game on the Wii. But they say that like maintaining an engine, keeping an in-house engine is challenging, but they like being able to customize an engine specifically to their needs, and that they feel like that works better for them than trying to use a third-party tool like Unreal Engine or something like that.
Well, and they've obviously been able to wring a lot out of that single engine, right? Like, there's been no part of like this generation where it's like, ooh, you just see the latest Xenoblade game, woof. Like they always look very good on the on the hardware.
It is interesting. I don't think I realized how small of I don't know exactly how many developers Monolith Soft has, but a while back they had job postings, and the message with the job postings was like, basically the message was, we're a scrappy team. Like it's great that you can do one thing, but we'll kind of need you to be able to do everything. And so it makes you wonder, like, Monolith Soft is also a support studio for
Right.
Nintendo. Like, they've worked on at least Breath of the Wild. They may have worked on Tears of the Kingdom as well. So the fact that they're like as prolific as they are with as small as they seem to be is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, but if they're doing all of that in basically the same engine, then maybe it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I wonder if we are like coming on the beginning of like a drought period for the Xenoblade Chronicles games, right? Like, the Switch has been a sort of fertile platform for the Xenoblade games, and maybe we should not expect that, again in the next couple of years.
There was I don't know exactly where it came from. Maybe there was a job listing. This was probably like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And it had some concept art that was more fantasy based. And anyways, there's this like idea online that is maybe based in fact, or maybe not, that they are working on something that's not Xenoblade Chronicles, that is more like a fantasy RPG instead of this more sci-fi setting of Xenoblade. But I also thought it was interesting that, they have their own in-house engine that seems to be separate from whatever, Nintendo uses on their projects. And we just in the news, was it yesterday, that Halo Studios, previously 343i,
Yeah.
is going to be moving to Unreal Engine. It just seems like, as with everything in the video game industry, there just continues to be more and more like homogenization of everybody kind of using the same tools, like, and but there are still
everybody but Nintendo.
Nintendo and like Capcom. There's still a few like
Yeah.
outliers that they're doing their own thing, but I actually don't know. How many engines Nintendo has internally? Like, is Mario running on something totally different from Splatoon, which is running on something totally different from
Yeah, that's a great question.
Zelda? Like, I don't know. I don't know if we know those details, because I don't think they name their engines, in the same way that Capcom does with like the RE engine.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if it's because I mean, like the RE engine, I feel like we only know its name because it is such an impressive thing that they've just used to like universally make games look good since Resident Evil 2. And that anytime Capcom puts out a good looking game, people are just like, oh yeah, that's that dang RE engine, and it always is. But yeah, I mean, I wonder, if Nintendo puts out like a cutting edge video game that's running on like PlayStation 5 for some reason, then maybe we'll have to talk about what engine it's running in.
Also, it just seems very fitting with Nintendo's kind of just MO of working in secrecy, that they're like, what engine? What is a video game engine? We don't know what you're talking about.
Right. That's such a we don't trouble ourselves with such words as engine.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Oh, Mark. Oh, sorry. I think I just lost you for a second, but we're good.
oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna say that speaking of secrecy and Nintendo, now that the Nintendo Museum is open, we've got some more details on some of the hardware prototypes that they have on display in the museum. No pictures are allowed on the display floor, so these descriptions come from ex-user Farm Boy in Japan, based on what they saw in the quote storage section of the museum display, which is very funny to me. It that there seemingly is just like this like corner or area in the museum where they've just thrown all of these prototypes with no explanation of what they are or anything like that, which seems to be the way that the museum is set up. But I just want to oh, go ahead.
This is the exact stuff that you and I were talking about at the museum reveal, right? Where we were like, we want like a diagram of how we got here. We want an explanation. We want a celebration of process and not of products. And it seems like some of this is here, but not really being like billed as part of the story of Nintendo.
Right. But what is in here seems really interesting. And so I just pulled some of my favorites from the list that Farm Boy in Japan from his descriptions. So prototype Wii remotes, which of course we've seen like some previous ones in Iwata Asks and things like that. But some that we hadn't seen before, including one shaped like a fidget spinner with a D-pad and buttons.
It's pretty cool. I would spin that right now.
And way ahead of the fidget spinner craze by like
That's true.
15 years.
But how, so like, is the D-pad, are the D-pad and buttons like on the edges of the fidget spin? Like, how on earth could you possibly actually use this?
Yes, I don't know. And it just, obviously we needed to go to this museum before, but now I need to see this fidget spinner.
You'll say, controller. Take me to the storage room so I can see the fidget spinner.
Exactly.
And then they'll kick you out.
Yeah. Another prototype Wii remote that looked like a giant D-pad with buttons all over it.
Cool.
I love that. A prototype controller that was seemingly the Wii Classic controller that allowed you to dock it with a Wiimote, so you would attach the Wiimote in the middle of the controller.
That's interesting. I mean, it's not like they came up with a better solution for the actual Wii Classic controller. That's one of the worst controllers Nintendo's ever made, in my opinion.
I remember trying to play Sin and Punishment using that controller. And yes, it was a very bad controller, but I loved how you always had to like clip the accessories into a Wiimote.
Yes.
And it's an interesting idea to instead mount the Wiimote onto the classic controller. It feels very phallic.
Yes, it definitely does feel phallic, and probably why they were like, we can't have children doing this. But it is funny that sort of like that mounting sort of like that is how I feel about the like the Wii, or not the Switch like Joy-Con sliding onto a Switch or into like a Joy-Con grip or whatever. That like it seems like they were doing that sort of thing earlier, and we're ultimately like, no, we'd rather it be this like strange daisy chain. Why didn't the Wii just have the ability for like the Pro Controller or whatever it's called, the Classic Controller, to connect directly with the Wii?
It must have been, I don't know. That's a good question. Like why the Classic Controller itself wasn't Bluetooth compatible?
Right.
Cost, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Well, and just like, because remember, to play like Guitar Hero, you had to put a Wii remote in the guitar controller.
I loved that. That was, having a little like Wiimote compartment in the base of the guitar to like stick it in. Very funny.
That is genuinely one of the weirder products everyone had. It's so is the Wii Fit balance board the only non-Wii remote controller that connected directly to the Switch without like any other like sort of interface? I mean, I guess GameCube controllers, but
No, I mean GameCube controllers. You had. Oh yeah. You would plug it directly into the Wii.
Right, right. But I guess
Yeah,
like wirelessly, I'm saying. Was
yeah.
there anything else?
Not that I can think of, but I also can't.
Everything else had to go through Wii remotes. It's so weird.
Yeah, yeah, but it was obviously possible. Yeah, I feel like it must have been a cost thing that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Um. Okay, they also have a Game Boy Advance prototype that seems to be designed to be used one-handed. They describe it as the size of a Game Boy Advance Micro, but it was instead designed with a vertical layout, has a tiny
Okay.
D-pad and scroll wheel and buttons. Scroll wheel.
Hmm.
Have you
Scroll wheel.
have you heard the rumors of the Switch 2 having like a scroll or scroll wheels on its controllers?
Yeah, yeah. So I think this was last week on the news episode with Connor, where I just wanted to call out the fact that there were a lot of like uh Switch 2 rumors like flying around, and that I had gotten sick of it. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. And this was one of them that like yeah, that the L and R buttons were scroll wheels. Which like sure I guess it seems possible. But at this point I'm like let's see the thing, right?
Yeah, I totally completely agree with you. But
But let's talk about it. I'm
well,
having
no,
fun.
when I read this, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, like ideas never really die at Nintendo.
Yes.
So maybe somebody for all this time has just been really trying to get a scroll wheel into a
Right.
Nintendo controller, and maybe it'll finally come true.
So, have we had scroll wheels on any other Nintendo hardware, like Game Boy Volume, maybe, like back in the day? Was that a scroll wheel?
Uh,
Original Game Boy.
maybe it was a scroll wheel. I can't remember for sure. And then also, I guess on the Wavebird, wasn't there a scroll wheel to like set the
Yes,
frequency or something?
that's right. Yes, and then there was an identical one on the receiver itself. Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever been a scroll wheel as like on a proper controller.
Right. Right. As like a method of input for gameplay.
Yeah. Um. But
The
hey,
one-handed GBA is very interesting to me. Because it feels like I mean, you know, when Super Mario Run was coming out, they made a big deal about like, and you can play this game one-handed. Which you know, in some ways is like, who cares, right? But like on the other hand, like kind of useful, right? If you want to be doing something else, you've got one hand free and can play the game. Um, but it also feels very Game and Watchy to me.
yeah, totally. And I think of that like one-handed stuff as being very like country like Japan focused or countries where you have to commute and you're on
Sure.
a
Yes.
crowded train and you're using one hand to hold on to something
Right.
and playing with your phone with the other hand. So again, maybe that's like something that they were toying with early on in the Game Boy Advance
But I also know that that's
development.
something that like new parents who want to play games that like when no, but like for real, like you're up late with your baby,
Right,
right?
yeah,
And it's
totally.
like you can hold the baby in one hand and then like then you can screw around on your phone with the other. But like yeah, you can't like pull out your Switch and like you know you use both hands for that. So I do like that. That seems to be something that's like in their it's something that they're thinking about in a way that like I don't think any other hardware developer um, uh, is.
It also makes you wonder what like the blue sky period for new Nintendo hardware looks like. You know,
Yes.
like cuz was the one-handed GBA prototype ever close to making it into production? Like probably not, but I wonder just what kind of like crazy ideas get thrown out there and, prototype mocked up and
Right.
eventually make their way into hardware somewhere in the future. Another prototype here is the one for the Nintendo DS, which instead of having the screens stacked on top of each other, it's more it opens horizontally like a book, and like the D-pads and buttons on either side, which apparently makes it look like an early Switch.
Oh yeah, I guess it would, huh? That's another also a Game and Watch thing, which I know that like the DS, even in the way it is presented, it has like its origins in Game and Watch. But yeah, there were a handful of those that opened whatever that horizontally like that. There was like that what's it called, rainfall? Do you remember this one where you're like you're moving the like the clothes around on like a laundry
Oh,
lines
right.
and like avoiding raindrops? That was one that opened like that way vertically. That Game and Watch, man, there's some cool stuff in there.
Nintendo and the San Diego Zoo have teamed up for a Pikmin installation at the world famous zoo. Through November 28th, a Pikmin pop-up tent will be located near the Spineless Marvels exhibit.
Okay.
Nintendo says that similar to the Pikmin games, quote, kids will be encouraged to grow, gather, and guide, grow in their appreciation for the natural world around them, gather pictures and memories of Pikmin in the zoo, and guide their friends and family through exciting themed locations throughout Wildlife Explorers Base Camp.
Okay, so I mean, like, I like Pikmin. What is this?
Yeah, it's not really clear to me. So at the pop-up, you can check in at
Uh-huh.
a My Nintendo kiosk to receive 100 platinum coins, and they are also offering a free swag bag for completing like a certain task. Like the example given is taking a picture of a Pikmin at the zoo, but I don't know if there are other tasks you could be asked to perform. Um,
And this is in no way related to Pikmin Bloom. This is just like a Pikmin. Like you're not gonna fight a mushroom there.
Seemingly no. Yeah, just Pikmin. But Nintendo's like Pikmin push continues unabated.
Well, sure, unabated, but like at a really small scale, right? Like what again, just like what we were saying before with like Shrek and the, like, was it the zoo going out to be like, who can we do a partnership with, or was Nintendo being like, who will let us put Pikmin stuff up?
Finally, Professor Layton in the New World of Steam is launching on Switch next year, marking the first new entry in the series proper since I think 2013, when Professor Layton and the Azran Legacy was released. There's been some spin-offs and the crossover with Phoenix Wright since then, but I think that's the last like proper Professor Layton game, which kind of raises the question, why bring it back now? And according to Level 5 CEO Akihiro Hino, there was a strong push from one specific company. Speaking at Tokyo Game Show, Hino said, quote, certain individuals from the industry really wanted us to release a new game, had a strong push. Wait, certain individuals from the industry really wanted us to release a new game, had a strong push coming from company N. When I heard these opinions, I started to think it would be good to make a new game so that fans could enjoy the series at the level of quality provided by the latest console.
So we think this is probably Namco.
That's right. That's right. He also remarked that he initially had some concerns about bringing Professor Layton back, feeling like the series already had a quote beautiful conclusion. But yeah, it seems like the series is, at least in my mind, so associated with Nintendo from its premiere
Right.
on the DS and continuing on the Nintendo 3DS. So, but it is interesting if this is true that Nintendo was like, boy, sure would be great if somebody
love a
created
new Layton game.
yeah, Professor Layton game.
Why do you think that is? Because, like, Nintendo, obviously this year we saw a new Famicom Detective Club game. We saw a remake of the Another Code games. So, like, there is definitely, like, a space, or at least, like, Nintendo wants there to be a, like, flow of narrative, games like that on their platforms. But I just don't think of them as, like, cornerstones of the Switch experience, right? Like they're not the obviously Mario, Zelda, whatever, like mainstream Nintendo things, but they're also not the like breakout casual game things either. It's not Ring Fit Adventure, it's not Nintendo Switch Sports, it's not Animal Crossing. So like I don't know. It's just it's a weird niche that they seem to be happy to keep having filled, right?
Yeah, and maybe there's just somebody who's a big Professor Layton fan
Could
at
be, yeah.
Nintendo who was just going to all of the industry events, just walking around and at the
Right.
water cooler spreading the word that wouldn't it be great if there was a new Professor Layton game.
Mark, are you a Layton fan? I know obviously that you're a Phoenix Wright boy, but what about Layton?
Yeah, I haven't played the later entries in the series, so I didn't play. I think there's two 3DS entries, and I didn't play either of them. But I loved the first game, Curious Village, I think it was called. It's such a neat on the Nintendo DS. The puzzles were fun. I like the characters. The animation style is like such a fun mashup between European animation and like anime. And so I fell off of the series, but I will absolutely buy the new one. It's been a long time since I've played a Professor Layton proper, and maybe I'm the target audience for bringing it back. Is
Yeah,
lapsed
maybe you
Layton
are.
fan.
A lapsed Layton fan. You are correct that the first game is called And the Curious Village. If you had to guess, what do you think the names of the second and third ones are?
Oh, I used to know this information,
Which is why I thought it would be fun to ask you.
but I've completely forgotten now.
Okay, so I'm going to give you hints. So it's always Professor Layton and something. Okay. So the first one here, it's like a devil container.
A devil container.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
It means diabolical box.
Oh, okay.
And then the next one here is Professor Layton and it's like how do I give word clues around this? It's the unwound future. I couldn't figure out a way to get around it. But yeah, they made a lot of these things. Then there's a prequel trilogy. One of those is on DS, and then two of them are on 3DS. And then, as you said, there is the Phoenix Wright crossover, and then the Layton's Mystery Journey.
Yeah, but that's like a spin-off featuring. It's like the daughter of one of the characters. From the series.
Yeah, so it has been a long time since we last had one of these, and you're going to you're committed right now to picking it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, signed, sealed.
Good. Delivered. I'm yours. All right, Mark. Let's get out of the news. Okay, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you so much for listening. If you're not in our Discord already, you should send us an email and I will send you an invitation. You can get on in there. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.